Look at this great group. All right, so for tonight, you'll want a blanket or even a towel or two. A couple of yoga blocks wouldn't hurt. And then if you had a bolster, you could have that as well, or you could use a big pillow or a cushion. That'll just be for like an option. We can also use the blocks with the blanket to kind of mimic a bolster in one of the poses we're gonna do. So this is rest and restore. Let's get started on our back. And we're gonna put our rolled up blanket underneath our knees or underneath our thighs. Is the music too loud? Can you even hear it? Okay, good enough. So if you don't have a blanket rolled up, you could just use a pillow or something under your legs. That might give your low back just a little more support. And I'm just going to mute some of your microphones, and then we can unmute in the end and have a chat. Once you get situated, just give your shoulders a little shrug and reach, kind of lift and tuck, fiddle with your arms, and then let them land where they feel most comfortable. And do the same thing with your legs. Just kind of adjust your pelvis, kind of tip side to side. You might kind of roll the legs in and out a few times. And then just notice where your body wants to land. And we'll bring our focus to our breathing, making it a bit deeper without it feeling overworked. Maybe that just means slowing things down somewhat. Sensing the oxygen entering your body through your nose, filling up the belly and the ribs. And a slow trickle as you let that air leave your body to settle. I'm just going to do a visualization here with the breathing. We're going to imagine that the inhale could be directed to the space just behind the heart and in front of the shoulder blades. Sometimes we get a little sticky back there. And even though this class is mostly going to be for the lower body, we're going to do some of the stuff we're going to do is going to target the thoracic spine and the shoulder blades. So hold your attention there and breathe. Feel the soft rise and fall that your breath makes in your body. Observe any spaces that you notice between your breaths. I'm just going to slightly tuck your chin so it feels as if the back of your skull is sort of lifting. And then let your chin lift slightly. It's almost like just a really subtle yes nod, but not overdone. Very conservative. Maybe barely even noticeable. And then just find where your head wants to land naturally. Bend your knees. Keep that blanket where it is for now. Just set your feet about as wide as your hips. And you're going to keep your feet grounded here, but you're going to push into your feet like you're going to stretch your toes to the bottom of your mat. Your whole body is going to kind of slide towards the head side of your mat. And then you're going to think of pulling your heels towards your bum, and that's actually going to slide your body a little bit towards your toes. And this we're going to do in a rocking motion. So it's kind of hard to explain if you're not sure what I'm doing. just take a look. I'm basically kind of sliding on my skin, on my fascia, on that first layer of connective tissue. And I can feel the backs of my hands, my sacral area, and even some of my shoulder blades kind of sliding around on the floor back and forth. I'm just going to do a few more seconds of that. And then make it slower and find the pause. And then we'll take arms straight out from the shoulders in a T-like shape with your palms facing open for now. And just let your fingers relax. Slight tuck of the chin. And turn your head towards your right shoulder. As you come back through the center, maybe just a little lift of the chin, creating an arc. Tuck your chin and turn your head to the left. Real simple here. Let's do it again. Gentle arc through the middle and then back to the right. Feeling into neck sensation, into the contact points at the back of your head, and any sensation in the shoulders or arms or hands as you turn side to side. Good. Come back to the center. Stretch your legs back out until your thighs connect to the back of that blanket again. It could be the knees as well. And then this next little movement is very subtle. And what we'll do is we'll try to reach the right leg longer. So reaching it towards the toe side of your mat. So your pelvis will feel a little crooked. And then return that leg back to its natural resting position. Now stretch your left leg a little longer. You might feel like your right hip is lifting, but maybe we can focus more on that right thigh bone stretching away. Let's go back and forth twice more. It's a pretty small movement. Don't be too fussy about the rest of your body's posture. Just try to stretch your leg away from your trunk. Last one to the left like this. And then see if you can create what feels like a symmetrical, balanced position of the thigh bones and your pelvis. Connect your breathing again to the back of the heart. Creating a focus there. Maybe even hearing the sound of your breath as you exhale. Rebend your knees and set your feet about hip width or so. Take the hands to the front rim of your pelvis. And then let your knees rest together. So there's just a hint of thigh rotation inward. And we're going to find those little pelvic rocks like we've been working on. Tucking and untucking without actually lifting the hips. We just roll from the top of the sacrum at the 12 o'clock mark and then tip to the bottom of the sacrum at the 6 o'clock mark. Let your low back just follow along naturally. Might create a soft arc away from the floor as you tip your pelvis forward. And perhaps it imprints closer to your mat when you tuck under. Two more times with the rock. And And then find that middle ground, the place where your body wants to land, unrestricted, effortless, comfortable. And then go ahead and take your knees back out to about as wide as your hips. Stretch your arms open to the T again. Now we're going to involve a little bit of the upper body here as we try to keep the lower body fixed in place. As you reach your left arm up and over, let your left shoulder leave your mat and your head, and try to reach that left arm slightly beyond the right fingertips. And then roll back down nice and slow. Just a gentle rotation through that upper back. Right arm's going to reach up and over, almost like you're doing a really soft core twist as you keep your hips pretty balanced. Let's do one more on each side like this, and we'll change it a little bit. Okay, on the next couple, you're going to start with the arm, reach it across you, and then let your legs kind of flop over to the side as well, nice and soft. Roll everything back to the middle, neutralize, and then sweep the right arm across and let the legs turn as well. We'll do one more set each direction. Simple rolling pattern. When you finish that last repetition, go ahead and take just a moment's rest in the neutral position. Now we're going to let just the legs turn side to side and keep the upper back pretty steady. And on this one, you might like to widen your stance with your feet. That will give you a little bit more intentional hip rotation. Keeping the feet narrow is okay too. That's just going to be more of a twist. They're both good. And if you're inclined, you could turn your head opposite of the legs. And you're just going to find your own speed. I like super slow, feeling for those points of contact along the journey. And then let's let our legs eventually land over towards the right side. Adjust until you're comfortable. And then give your left glutes a little squeeze. And then raise your left arm over your head towards the wall behind you. And just try to create a little more length from your left fingertips all the way down to your left knee as it turns towards the right. The arm could be floating or it can just be resting on the ground. Contracting that left glute just for another breath or two. On your inhale, take your legs back to the middle, knees together, and then just drape your arms over your chest. Just let them lay there nice and soft. And then we're going to revisit the pelvic tuck untuck before we proceed to the other side. So let's rock between 12 and 6 along that triangular shaped sacral area. Tucking and untucking, working the back and the front of the core container. Just real gentle. And now let's add in a little bit of the side to side tipping. So now you're going to kind of try to balance from from 9 to 3, as if you were rolling a marble between your two front hip points, right through the bowl of your pelvis. The legs can turn a little bit if they want. You don't have to get too crazy with the lifting. It's just a subtle tilt. A little more each way. And then let your pelvis land. Start to windshield wiper the legs slowly from side to side as your head rotates in the opposite direction. Being in the experience the whole way through. Noticing those subtle shifts, subtle tensional stretches through the spine, through the hips, through the neck and your shoulders. And the next time you find your legs to the left, you're going to pause there. Give your right bun a little squeeze. And then stretch that right arm overhead towards the wall behind you. It can hover just barely off the ground, or you might like to just let it lay there. Try to create an inch or so more space in your mind all along that right side seam. A little more glute engagement. Might feel a stretch more on the front of that right hip. 2 more breaths. On your in-breath, let's bring it back to the middle. Knees together. Arms just softly draped over your chest or ribs. Like a really loose hug. Okay. So because we're going to involve a little more leg movement here, let's set that blanket roll aside. And if you have a water bottle in your path, you might want to move that too. So we're just going to build on that wiper, and we're going to make it almost like a star pose. So let's start with the knees bent, the feet wide. And then you're going to reach your left arm across towards the right. Let your legs tip to the right. Now start to reach your arm, that left arm, on a diagonal, and then float your left leg off the ground and straighten it. So you're reaching the whole left side in a diagonal line as your right leg pushes into the ground gently. And then you're going to turn your gaze towards the floor with your neck. And now turn your gaze towards that left hand. Take one more breath or so there, finding some length on that left side. Rebend your left knee, plant your toes, and roll back to neutral. Right arm's going to reach across now, over to the left. Then let your legs tip. Kind of laying on your side here, reach that right arm up and away from you. Lift your right leg, float it, extend it. You can point through your toes. Try to grow a little longer on your right side. Turn your head towards the floor. And then turn your gaze towards your right hand. Rebend your right knee. Set your toes to your mat. And then roll it back. So now we're just going to make it more fluid. Left arm reaching across. Float the leg, extend the leg. Nice diagonal stretch. Roll it to your back and switch. You might have to lift and shift your pelvis every now and then. You might wind up off of your mat. I kind of like to keep an eye on my hand and let my gaze direct the roll to the side. So you can play around with what the eyes are doing here. I let my head rest back down when I come through that middle space. And then I just float it and reach tall. Left fingers to left toes. Let's do one more little roll each direction. And then let's meet back in that neutral position. Step your feet about as wide as your hips or wider. And we'll find that constructive rest pose again. Let the knees taper inward. Hands can be on the belly or the pelvis, or even up on the rib cage for breathing touch. Breathe into your hands. Move your feet about as wide as your hips again. Separate your knees. Adjust your upper body until your back feels natural and your arms are comfy. And then press down gently with your left leg. Work on keeping a level pelvis and start to move your right leg in a really small bent knee circle. Just like you were trying to draw a circle on the ceiling with a pen attached to your right knee. Or maybe you have a laser pointer attached to your right kneecap and you're just trying to create that simple circle on the ceiling. We go a little slower, that could change the experience a little bit. Notice how there might be a gentle lifting, twisting, or rocking in the hips and the pelvis. Just try to simplify and keep it in the thigh bone. If you wanted to, you could reverse that circular direction. If you're feeling fatigued, just let it rest. Let's try for 2 more swoops. Excellent. Now stretch both legs nice and long on your mat and also quite wide. Wider than your hips, maybe even wider than your mat. Take your arms outward, maybe a little bit upward like a big starfish pose, and then give your buns a squeeze, both of them. Relax. Once again, find that hug from your backside strength, squeezing the tush. And relax. On this next set, we're going to try to start at a level 1 of 10, and then gradually ramp up to a 10 on that muscular contraction. So start slow, building to 10. And that's your count of 10, not mine. So I'm about halfway to my max. Building towards my peak. Maximal effort, squeezing. And then also try to ramp down slow. Gradually letting go of that muscular engagement until your bum is soft again. Ooh, I got a little shimmy shake on that one. Reboot the legs, plant your feet hip wide. Now your right leg is going to stay to help with your stability. Your arms can come back down beside you. And now we're mobilizing the left hip in a simple circle. This isn't as big of a circle as what we would normally do in our detour classes or even in our flow classes. Don't worry about the size. Just kind of trace that circular shape. Notice what the low back wants to do. Try to keep it pretty chill. And take that hip in the other direction for a few rounds. Good. Go ahead and set your feet down. Stretch your legs out a little bit wider. And now this time, instead of turning the toes outward or neutral, we're going to try to turn the thigh bones slightly inward. So it's like your toes are being pigeon-toed. And then your arms are going to reach straight out to a T. And then one more time, we're going to try that glute squeeze, and it's going to feel different with your hips in rotation. So you might not be able to ramp it up as much as you did last time, and that's fine. Two more breaths. Okay, resetting, rebending your knees. Now this next one is also a very subtle movement, and it's going to mimic kind of a walking pattern, but we're not actually going to pick the feet up off the floor. So what you're going to think of is a little bit of a sideways tilt with your pelvis. So you're pulling one side up towards your rib cage and you're dropping the other side down towards your heel. And you might even feel a little side core activation. That's fine, almost like a side lateral crunch or kind of a sassy hip movement, hiking one side and then dropping the other. Now you can keep this real small, especially if there's any unsavory feeling in the back at all. I'm thinking quadratus lumborum sometimes can get a little cranky, so you don't need to overdo this one. Just kind of rock the pelvis, hike one side, drop the other, and notice if the thighs want to turn in a little bit or out a little bit. Let them. Let your legs do what they naturally want to do here. Sensing one side of the waistline growing longer as the other side contracts and shortens. And then let's keep this going, but now we're going to add in almost like a tuck down and in with the scapula and the rib cage. So now it's not just the hip hiking, but now we're trying to bring that side of the ribs closer to the pelvis. And then we're going to keep going side to side. It almost feels like you have a little itch on your back and you're trying to use the ground to scratch it. Does the neck want to turn as you do this little pelvic tilt crunch? My head wants to turn to the side that's getting shorter naturally. So I might try to play with that and see if I can reverse it. Yeah, that's weird. Two more each side. And then find your natural resting posture. And start to hold your right leg closer to your body. Let your pelvis tuck and roll if it wants to. And just try to find that first edge where your leg doesn't want to come any closer to you, and pause there without force. Now you can just stay like you are here with that left leg bent, or you could stretch your left leg back to the ground. Switch sides. Left leg snuggles close. Option to stretch right leg all the way long. All right, my friends, we are going to shift to a new base position. So you're going to come to lay on your right side, or whatever way works best for you. Just if you do it the opposite of me, everything's going to be mirrored. And then you may want your bolster or your blanket rolled up. You're going to lay on your right side for just a second, try to get situated. I'm going to show you with this little bolster, but you could also do it with a rolled up blanket or towel. Buddy, I'm going to have to move you. So sorry. Okay. Bend your right knee to about 90 degrees out from your hip. And then this left leg, you can kind of figure it out once you get into the pose. But what we're going to do from here, I feel like the legs look like a Nike swoosh kind of. You're going to start to turn your chest towards the ground, any amount. And maybe that bolster or blanket is just underneath your ribs to support you. Now your left leg, let's try to rotate it inward so that the top of your foot is trying to turn towards the floor, or even your kneecap towards the floor. Now you can stay on your forearms, or you could lay your trunk all the way down over one of your support systems. And maybe you just create a little pillow rest for your head on your fists or hands. Inner thighs might be touching. And if anything feels restrictive, just try to adjust until you can find a similar shape that feels nice. We'll try to fill up the backside ribs with your inhales. Let your exhale leave you slowly with patience. Take about 3 more breaths or so here, allowing for even more relaxation and effortlessness in the shape. And please use the support of your arms and shoulders to first come back up with the chest a little ways. And then you can open up that left leg. And just stack your hips for a moment so that everything is kind of symmetrical down below. And we'll meet in a tabletop position from here before we do the other side. And I'm going to give you 2 choices. So arms are going to be a little wider than normal in tabletop. The knees can be together or wide. Your option would either be just to rest in a child's pose, or you're going to drop the hips back like child's pose, but stay up in the chest, and then kind of lean and sit and shift the hips up and over to the right side of the heels and up and over to the left side of the heels. And there might be a hint of the chest kind of going in the other direction. Otherwise, child's pose, any version. Maybe laying on your bolster if you like that more restorative child's. If you're doing the hip drops, let's try for 2 more, even slower in each direction. Excellent. Let's start that side lying sequence now on the left side. Coming onto left hip, left shoulder to begin, or left forearm, I should say. Bring that knee out from the hip at 90 degrees or so. The right leg is an extension for now. And then we're going to let the pelvis turn towards the floor and the ribs as much as they want to go. And wedge your support system there if it was helpful for you last time. And then let's get this right thigh to turn inward more if possible so that you're on the top of your foot and knee, maybe. And then you can just simply fold and lay over top of whatever you've got underneath you. And find that stillness. Coming up on the last couple of breaths here. Simple, gentle, yet intentional breathing. Taking what you need And then letting go of everything else. Find that support from the shoulders and the hands and the arms to lift your chest off the ground. Stack your right leg on top of your left leg. Let's pause in neutral for a second. And then we'll come back to the tabletop-ish position. And this time it's going to be a little different. So we're going to start with just a little bit of an asymmetric leg stance. So drag your left knee ahead of your right knee in that tabletop so that there's just a slight separation between the legs from front to back. And then you're going to start to drop your hips back just like you would for child's pose, but it's going to feel crooked. And you might have to lean a little bit in your torso to one side or the other to make it feel right. And then just come to your forearms or to your bolster and try to find a nice, long, easy breath. Let's try to bring the left elbow just a touch closer towards the left knee. Forearm can stay on your mat. And then you're going to crawl your right hand way out in front of you, maybe a little bit off on a diagonal line. Think of reaching your right fingertips forward, but pulling your right hip crease backwards. Press through your palms, come on up, and then we'll scissor the legs the other direction. Right leg stepping ahead slightly. I'm terrible with distance, maybe six inches. It doesn't even have to be that much. Stretch your hips back. If you feel like your torso is pulling you in one direction or the other, allow for that. And then just start on the forearms. Head can be hovering or resting on a block. Now you're going to try to drag that right elbow a little closer to your right knee, about right in front of it. Stretch your left arm forward and slightly outward. And as you reach through the left fingertips, you're going to think of snuggling your left hip crease backwards. Reset your neutral, normal tabletop position. We're going to practice our cat and cow tonight with the reversed breath pattern. So we'll inhale to the cat flexion. Tuck your tail nice and strong. And then exhale, pull through to the cow. Draw your heart forward, point your tail high. Let's do a few more like that. Inhale to flexion. Push into your mat. Exhale, find that sway back. Inhale, really dome. Pull that front belly up and back. Tuck your tail, widen your upper back. And then on this one, let's really focus on the upper back, pulling through to that back bend. One more for good measure. Inhale, cat. Slow exhale to the cow. And then one last time, we're going to do those little hip switches. And this time we're going to come back through the neutral tabletop in between sides. And you're just going to kind of let your hips lean and scoot back to the right, center, and left, center. And then let's start to make a full circle. Drop your hips to the left, sweep them through the middle, and then over to the right, making a teardrop shape then as you shift forward. Settling back to the left, middle, right, and forward. Now, if you want to get some more spine action here, you can think of a little rib spiral as you go too. We're going to do one more in this direction, left, middle, right. And then you're going to start to go the other way. Back into the right first. Swoop it left. Pull it forward. 2 more times. Okay. Let's come on back to the seat. Legs can stretch out. And then we'll maybe want a yoga block or a bolster. Just keep it handy so you don't have to come back up for it. But as you get down to your back, let's start with the feet planted. And you're going to walk your feet fairly close to your bum. And we're just going to try to provide ourselves a little bit of self-traction. Hands are going to take the front of the thighs. So I've got my hands like this, thumbs apart from that index finger. And then I'm going to take that crease, the webbing, between my thumb and first finger and try to situate it right at my hip crease. And instead of pressing down into my pelvis, I'm going to press forward into my thigh bones. And depending on your body proportions, this will be more powerful or less powerful. So if you have a really long torso and short arms, it might not be as sensational as if you had long arms and a short torso. But maybe you can connect to a sense of stretch or length or even decompression along your spine. Two more breaths. Release. Take your knees in and up and hold your knees with your hands. I'm going to take your legs wide apart. It's kind of like a butterfly. And then draw the knees in up towards your rib cage, together and slightly forward away from your body. I'm just going to continue with that little circle pattern. Your legs are mirroring each other. You're going to reverse that circle. Pull in first, then go wide. Send your knees away from you, and then draw them back together. Do 2 more. And the next time your knees meet, you're going to let your legs move in a circle together. So your thighs are going to stay connected. Your legs might scissor slightly away from each other from front to back, but you're just rolling on that sacrum. And let's go the other way. And then let's find a little cannonball tuck here. Pull your legs as close as they'll go. Lift your shoulders and head if you want the extra. Maybe bringing your forehead a little closer to your knees. You can allow your shoulders to help here as well. We'll take 3 breaths into the back. And then please set yourself up for a really comfy final pose of the night, perhaps with that roll or a bolster underneath your thighs again, or something cushy underneath your head and neck. Get situated, content, warm. Maybe you even have something to lay over your eyes if you still have some light in your space. Connect your awareness to any spaces on your body that you feel are connected to an object, whether that's clothing or the floor, your blanket. And next, notice any areas of your skin and body that are uncovered, slightly more exposed to light, air, and sound. Relax the container of your skin. And without trying to change anything about it, just observe your breathing. your body still and quiet and resting. Observe the peace in your breath. The subtle expansion around your rib cage. And the really light swelling of the belly as you let it rise on the in-breath. Just allowing for that exhale to leave you, drift away. Drop into that pause. And then refresh yourself with a new breath. Welcoming it in. Real simple, let it go. Breathe in a way that makes sense for now. Less effort. And then without thinking too much about it, just notice which areas of your body are inclined to begin the awakening process. Allowing for small movements to start. And then building upon that, maybe working into some more global movements while still maintaining that restorative nature. Conserving your energy. Practicing patience and kindness, tenderness for yourself. Option to roll over to one side for a bit, supporting your head with a bottom arm. And whenever you feel ready, you can come up to a seat or a kneeling pose of your choice. Let your arms just hang from your sides, hands resting somehow in your lap. And stretch your spine more vertically so you can sense that there's some space there all along your torso. Hold your attention again just behind that heart space. The inside border of the scapula, see if you can visualize a breath centered there. Thanks so much for showing up for yourself today to do this really good work. I know there's a lot to that practice in terms of instructions, but really it's meant to be an exploration for you. So I hope that you were able to connect to that in a way that felt free and curious. Take care of yourselves. See you next time. Namaste.